So putting it all together, which one's your favorite? Does it matter which one I believe in for getting to heaven?
Yeah.
You know, all those
sure.
all those questions.
Right.
Go for it.
Okay. No, if you're a Calvinist, or you find yourself in the Reformed camp, even if you're not like you can be a 4-point Calvinist, right? But you're still find yourself in the Reformed camp. Don't worry about it.
Oh, you mean forget the L? Just TUIP.
TUIP.
Yeah.
Correct. And
Okay.
so then like, cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the Southern Baptist camp, you believe in a once saved, always saved, cool. Like if you're in the Wesleyan or Arminian camp at larger, cool. Like, in other words, no, I mean, like, it's by grace through faith we're saved. Not that we have to agree on all of our soteriologies. Okay. But for me, this is Joseph speaking, and I want to go back to a passage that I read that I did want to hit on, because again, I realize I'm coming from this in a Wesleyan perspective, and I know that.
Yeah, you threw that one in there.
Yeah. So
I was like, that's a new word.
Yeah. So I'm coming in it from the Wesleyan perspective, which is again a kind of, we find ourselves as a Wesleyan, and we find ourselves within the Arminian camp. Okay. And one of the things that is interesting about Wesley, and I want to say this real quick. How much time do we have? You have time? All right. How much time?
Like 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Perfect. All right. So one of the things like within the Wesleyan camp is that I have John Wesley was really disliked by Calvinists at times, and really disliked by Arminians at times.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of interesting for Wesley to be in that camp. And one of the things that Wesley was wrestling with and struggling with, and I know some Arminians do as well, but one of the things Wesley was struggling with was, well, maybe there is a sense that God doesn't determine who he dies for, okay? But maybe he does foreknow.
Oh, right.
And out of the foreknowledge, he chooses to die for those that he foreknows are going to come to faith in him. Okay. And so Wesley struggled with this. He wrestled with this. And I think it's a valid wrestling point. Like, all right, well, do I believe that Christ died for all? Yes, I do. Joseph does. Okay. But do I think there's a place to sit there and go, well, but in God's foreknowledge, he knew who he was going to die for. Okay. So then he predestined for those to be the ones who are considered the elect. And so, and though he died for everybody, he already knew who was the ones he was dying for.
Who was going to pick him.
Yeah. And so, and I think that's the thing for me. Like, did Christ die for everybody? Yes. He's a one-time sacrifice for all time, for all people. That's my perspective. Okay. And so, and it's the same thing. All the camps have got their scriptures they can back it up with. And I'm like, well, let's go to Hebrews and let's read through da-da-da. Or let's look at the passage we just read in 1 Timothy 2. So I do believe that there is Christ dying for all, but do I believe in his foreknowledge? God knows who is going to come to know him. Yes. Right. And so
I go evangelize, and it's just like God knows which people are going to say yes.
Yeah. 100%.
But I do it to everybody.
But you can do it to everybody.
I don't have the list.
Because we don't know.
Right.
Okay. And so, for example, when it says here, for those he foreknew, he also predestined. And those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he justified. Those he justified, he glorified. But there's the foreknowledge that precedes the predestination. Okay?
Right. Okay.
And I think that's an important part for me. Like, we have to, like, I believe in God's sovereignty. He does know through foreknowledge who's going to come to know him.
Right.
Who's going to be, who is going to be saved. And then we can argue all the semantics, about, well, did he just die for these people or just die for the da-da-da? And one of the reasons I believed he had to die for everyone and all of creation, and because everything had to be reconciled back to himself, right? And then one of the reasons I really don't believe in a once saved, always saved position is because of this passage in Colossians. And so in Colossians chapter 1, he says, verse 21, once you were alienated and hostile in your minds as expressed in your evil actions.
Mm-hmm.
But now he has reconciled you by his physical body through his death to present you holy, faultless, and blameless before him, if indeed you remain grounded and steadfast in the faith and are not shifted away from the hope of the gospel that you heard.
Okay.
And that if is a big if, right? In other words, yes, you're reconciled and you will be reconciled to God.
If you do good stuff.
If you remain grounded and steadfast in the faith.
Okay.
And are not shifted away from the hope of the gospel. So in other words, it's not works that keeps us, it's faith. But the fruit of that faith is works. Okay?
Okay.
And so I just, for me, this is a really important thing of, yes, God foreknows, God has died for all, we all come to know Christ through faith, and we will be saved, we will find ourselves seeing him face to face, if we remain in the faith. Okay? And so, no, I don't believe we're saved by works. I believe we're saved by grace through faith, and I believe that we live by grace through faith.